What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. 12-pack Jets Chargers, brought to you by Profit Exchange. Make sure you check out the Bet with Badlands section for any props that you are looking to get in. Tweet over, hit us in the Discord if you want to see anyone's. This week's 12-pack available here on YouTube, available on the Patreon audio version. A lot of different ways to get your quick hitting predictions here. Just a quick PSA. Still have our Badlands Back 9 contest live. Pick the result of every Jet game from the Raiders game on. If you win, you get a signed and framed Jericho Cotchery jersey, who will be on the podcast this week, which is going to be incredible. We also just announced Jets Falcons Badlands tailgate with Profit Exchange, with Chitty's Cheesesteaks. It's already like 50 people who RSVP'd. Check out the Patreon. We have the link on how you can RSVP and come hang out for the game. It's going to be a great time. New other guys will be on the feed tomorrow for Sunday. Monday, Coffee will be on the feed for game day of Jets Chargers. And then Connor and I will have reaction on the feed on Tuesday. Lot going on. We had a great Speed Bridge episode this week, and Dan and Connor with a nice and long buck to trend. Anyway, let's talk Jets Chargers. I'm confident about this one, and I'm usually not that confident, but I just like how the Jets match up with this team. And I like that they're home. I like that the Chargers have to fly across the country for this game. On paper, I understand why the Chargers are a favorite, and nationally they're going to be a popular pick. More flashy names: Khalil Mack, Bosa, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. Herbert's without question the better quarterback in this game. So why do I like the Jets? I like the Jets in the trenches in this game. And the Jets play that ugly Shrek, Shawshank football we've been talking about, and the Chargers are not built to beat those kind of teams, and they are not built to win in close games where Brandon Staley has to make game management decisions that matter. And the Jets play close games effectively every single week this year, except for the Dallas game when they were in the Rodgers hangover. So, like most, I think this is going to be lower scoring, probably going to hit the under. It's going to be close in the final few minutes, and I like how the Jets execute better, at least this season, in the final few minutes than how the Chargers do. I think defensively, they'll get after Herbert a little bit. I think we're due for a big Quinnen Williams game. I don't see any reason to expect the edge production to slow down from Bryce Huff and Jermaine Johnson with a little more Will McDonald mixed in. They're healthy in the secondary. Sauce and DJ Reed will be out there. Michael Carter in the slot. They'll be able to keep Allen in check and keep the Chargers passing game generally in check. They're going to score some points, but I think the Jets could keep the Chargers to let's call it 14, maybe 17. And I think their defense and special teams will set up some points where the Jets offense they'll score their one touchdown. They'll kick 3 field goals and then maybe have some more points set up by their defense and special teams. So this feels to me like a 20-17, 17-16 Jet type win. Close, low scoring. I think offensively, no reason to expect the Breece Hall usage to slow down. He made a big play in the passing game, but really struggled in the run game. I think he'll do better running the football this week. I think Zach Wilson will be right in that sweet spot he always is. 190, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 turnover. I think he runs a little more in this game, 30 to 40 yards. I think the Jets offensive line, I'm fascinated to see who ultimately suits up, but I'm optimistic. It seems like we're trending towards Tippmann playing, Laken Tomlinson playing, and Dwayne Brown potentially even playing. So how the Jets are going to Tetris that remains to be seen. I personally wouldn't move Mekhi Becton from left tackle, but would not be shocked if the Jets came out with Dwayne Brown at left tackle, Mekhi Becton at right tackle, and then on the interior, a mix of Tippmann, Tomlinson, maybe Max Mitchell, and if not Max Mitchell, Xavier Newman, who would be out there to help hold the fort while the Jets continue to get healthy. It's going to be an interesting combination. I'm speculating here, but the Jets never cease to amaze me with the offensive line combinations they put out there. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch for on Monday. Regardless, I think we'll see a little more tempo from the offense. I think we'll still see everything pretty much funnel through Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson as it should. A little more Jeremy Ruckert, a little more Xavier Gibson, and they'll do just enough to support the defense, who I think will do what they do. And I think they'll force a couple turnovers in this one. I think the Jets will win the special teams battle, and that will ultimately be the difference and get the Jets out to 5-3 going into yet another primetime game against the Raiders. So if there's some props I'm looking for in this one, I feel like we're due for a Quinnen Williams 1.5 sack type game. I think Breece Hall, again, he had an ugly stat line rushing the ball. It feels like he'll, in a positive way, regress to the mean and get up around 70, 80, 90 rushing yards. In this one, Garrett Wilson's reception over always seems to be a safe bet. He's going to continue to be a target hog for Zach Wilson. Coming off a game where Tyler Conklin had no catches, that's unlikely to replicate itself. I could see him having 4 or 5 catches in this one, and usually his over-unders are around like 2.5, 3.5. So I think you're going to get some good value there. I think the first half under, I think the overall under are both smart bets with what the game script is likely to be here overall. And look, maybe again, we'll be proven to be wrong, but I think the Jets do what they do, and they win ugly, and it's not a pretty game. I think they play well enough in the trenches, especially on the defensive side of the ball, with Quincy Williams flying around, with Bryce Huff flying around, and Saleh is able to outcoach Staley, who's been very inconsistent with his game management, especially in close ones, and the Jets have been very good in close ones this year. I tweeted out what should be a rooting guide for Jet fans on Sunday as they get a relaxing Sunday without the team playing. I think you're looking for the Chiefs to beat the Dolphins first thing in the morning. You're looking for the Bengals to beat the Bills on Sunday night. Outside of that, you're always rooting for the NFC against the AFC. You hope the Cardinals could upset the Browns. You hope Seattle could beat Baltimore, who's been red hot lately. You hope the Colts lose again. Why not? The Steelers beating the Titans. Not ideal, but that North is going to be interesting as those teams start beating each other up. But a potential week where you could get a Bills loss, a Dolphins loss, and a Jets win, and all of a sudden it gets really tight at that top of the division with games against both Buffalo and Miami coming up. New England, not even really a factor at this point. I think I wouldn't mind if they won a game or two so they don't get that high of a pick for a new quarterback. They're playing Washington this week. That should be a disgusting football game. So, look, I think if you're a Jet fan, I like grabbing them at plus 3.5 right now at a minimum. I would take the money line straight up. But if you're not that confident, get them at plus 3.5. I think the line will get a little closer before kickoff. The Jets are America's team after all, so I'm not. I could see some money coming in as they get themselves into another primetime game. And outside of that, I'm trying to think what other props could be floating around that you could potentially grab here. Their offense is just such a mediocre unit at the moment. I really don't like leaning on individual money for anyone except for Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. The Zach Wilson rushing totals usually are pretty solid, and as I had mentioned, the Conklin rushing totals are not rushing, receiving totals and receptions totals will be interesting to watch. I don't necessarily think this is the week we get, is he active and in the mix at running back? He should be, and I'd really like to see him become the de facto number 2, use Cook as the third down back, and get Michael Carter out of the rotation. I think we're just going to continue to get an inch up more and more of Ruckert. I don't think he's going to fully take Uzomah or Conklin's job quite yet, even though you can make a fair case he really should. With receiver, if Irv Charles is healthy, Brownlee may be inactive again, pending on the health of Randall Cobb. I don't know if Cobb sitting down was kind of benched or it was actually because of his shoulder injury. So how they handle receiver will be interesting. I think if Charles is healthy, though, he will definitely be active because they like him as a gunner, especially with Hardy out. And then Malik Taylor, quietly played 23 snaps last week. The Jets clearly like him as a pure vertical threat, and he had a big play, drawing a pass interference in overtime. So he's not a guy we've talked a lot about, but it seems like as a receiver right now, they like him more than Brownlee and Charles. And if Cobb is hurt, he's kind of the fourth guy and more of a pure receiver than Gibson is right now, who's a little bit more of a gadget player. So there's always sort of one weird personnel thing with the Jets, and Taylor could be that guy who ends up playing another, 25, 28 snaps and gets a couple targets. I think they like his ability to just take the top off and clear space out for Wilson underneath. And then, Zach Wilson hasn't been shy about utilizing him. They had the big connection in the Hall of Fame game, and he looked to him in overtime in the biggest spot of the game. So he's kind of a random, interesting guy to keep an eye on overall. Don't necessarily have that as much on defense. I think just look for a little more Will McDonald. No Al Woods is probably going to, in the short term, just mean a little more reps for Quinnen Williams, a little more Michael Clemens kind of moving around up front. He's bulked up a little bit, so they won't hesitate to move him around on the interior. Let's see if there's any other roster moves in terms of maybe getting a guy like Smart in the mix. But for the most part, I think it's, hey, if Quinnen's been playing 67% of the snaps, let's move him up to 72 or 73. Let's give everyone else around him a little more to help fill in for Woods, who's going to be a big miss. Teams are going to try to run the football on the Jets like the Giants did, and Eckler is talented. But I think Quincy Williams is kind of like the perfect antidote to a guy like Eckler. Again, feeding into why I like this matchup. Because you get Sauce for Keenan Allen, you got DJ Reed for Keenan Allen. If they want to get Quentin Johnson in the mix, you feel good enough about how the Jets' corners match up. You have Quincy Williams for Eckler. Herbert's great. He's going to make some special plays, but he can still turn the ball over here or there. And I think the Jets, again, will get after him. And we're due for sort of that strip sack fumble recovery. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Monday Night Football. Let's hope our Jets get to 4-3. Make sure to check back on the feed tomorrow for a new episode of The Other Guys, and we will talk to you soon.